What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from the TokenMinorities, and today I'm bringing you Week 11 of the NPL against TomZ and the San Jose Sharpedos. But before I jump into that, I do want to apologize for the lack of an upload last week. The battle against Fog and the Colorado Avalanche took place in the middle of my grueling final schedule, so I did not have time to narrate that battle for you guys. But just so you know, the score was a 6-0 victory in my favor, and as a result, I didn't really feel justified in posting that battle. But if you are interested in seeing it, I will leave the link to the battle replay as a link in the description below. So if you're interested, check it out. It was a pretty decisive victory, though, on my end. So this week we are against the San Jose Sharpedos, and this is going to be a very interesting matchup, as he does have a lot of powerful threats to my team, specifically in Kyurem-B and in TomZ1272, which was a free agency pickup that he got here, I believe, a week ago. So that's a new threat that I'm not really happy to see, as it does put in a lot of work against my team. So as a result, Kyurem-B and TomZ1272 are going to be the biggest threats, but some of the other mons he has are Zapdos, Klefki, Conkeldurr, Mega Gyarados, which is always a threat. Always have to be prepared for that. Luckily, I do have Mega Venusaur, which should handle it pretty well. And then he has Roserade, Cofagrigus, Terrakion, Quagsire, and Blastoise. So really, outside of the major threats, I'm not terribly worried about his team. But the fact remains that he does have Kyurem-B, he does have TomZ1272, and he has Zapdos, which I also should mention, as my team really does struggle with electric types, considering it is kind of centered around Bulky Waters and Mega Venusaur. So yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into the team building process. Alright, so as I said before, Kyurem-B is a huge threat to my team. And quite frankly, I don't have anything that can take hits from it, considering Terravolt allows it to ignore Mega Venusaur's Thick Fat, and Empoleon does not appreciate taking any Fusion Bolts. So with that in mind, I decided to bring Wobbuffet this game, as it really is my best option against Kyurem-B, even though it really doesn't handle Kyurem that well, considering Kyurem does have access to Hone Claws, Roost, Substitute, and the like. I'm just going to have to play around it very well to have an opportunity to win in this game. So I did bring a relatively standard Wobbuffet with mixed defenses, such that I can survive hits from either a mixed Kyurem, a physical Kyurem, a special Kyurem, or even a TomZ1272 if he decides not to bring Kyurem-B in this particular game. So that's why I brought Wobbuffet, and with Wobbuffet on my team, I have to build around Wobbuffet to make sure it shines. So what mon will best work with an Encore coming from Wobbuffet? Well, Volcarona. I can Encore something with Wobbuffet and then get a free Quiver Dance and potentially sweep a team. So the idea here is to, of course, bring Volcarona with a Lumberry, such that the T-Wave from Klefki is not a threat, or also maybe Cofagrigus is toxic or something like that. Lumberry is very nice on this. I am, of course, running a maximum special attack spread, such that I can do the most amount of damage against his team. I don't need the bulk in this game, I just need the power, and Volcarona is here to supply it. Next up, I brought Alakazam with the Focus Sash, basically as a safety valve, because he can have even an Agility Nasty Plot TomZ1272. That's something I'm kind of worried about, or you could just have a Nasty Plot TomZ1272. Regardless, if Focus Sash is of utmost importance here, as it guarantees that I do live one attack and then of course die to the second attack. But you know, I live an attack and I'm able to dish off an attack of my own regardless of the situation. So I think Alakazam is going to be a key player in this game, and it's going to be my safety valve if I get in trouble. So now with the offensive core intact, I of course have my defensive core that will start off with Mega Venusaur. Here it's going to be a little bit different than the Mega Venusaurs I have brought in past weeks. He has Mega Gyarados, and this is my real only switch into Mega Gyarados, so I'm going to have to do something a little bit tricky here, as a Mega Gyarados at +1 after a Dragon Dance is able to 2-hit KO most Mega Venusaur, probably with Rocks guaranteed 2-hit KO on Mega Venusaur with Crunch. So with that in mind, I have to be able to get rid of Mega Gyarados before it can do that much damage to me. So I decided to bring Leaf Storm instead of Giga Drain this week, as after Stealth Rock on a Mega Gyarados, Leaf Storm is nearly a guaranteed OHKO. I think it's like an 85% chance to OHKO at level 50. So yeah, it's going to work very well in this game, I anticipate. And even if he doesn't bring Mega Gyarados, or regardless if he brings Mega Gyarados, this is going to be very, very good against his team, as he doesn't have much to take out Venusaur at all. So, looking forward to using that in this game. And then to tag team with the Mega Venusaur, I have the Empoleon as hazard support, and of course as an additional switch-in, maybe just a pivot against Kyurem-Black, as this does have Flash Cannon to peg it for a significant amount of damage, and I can just easily sack Empoleon to Kyurem-Black in order to trap it with Wobbuffet. So that's kind of the idea with this, and Ice Beam is there such that he doesn't have free switch-ins to Zapdos or Thundurus Therian. And finally, I have Gliscor, which many people might think is going to be very bad in this matchup, just considering how the majority of his team actually has super effective, or at least very strong attacks that are effective against Gliscor. However, because Tom has brought Klefki pretty much every single week, and because Klefki is outstanding support for Kyurem-Black, I wanted to make sure that I had a counter to the Klefki, and this set is made such that it counters Klefki. Because I have Earthquake and Fire Fang, and Tom loves to run Magnet Rise Klefki, I decided to, again, make sure that this is going to counter Tom's Klefki. He wants to run Spikes, he wants to run T-Wave, he runs Magnet Rise and one attack every single time he brings Klefki. That's what it is. So this is the counter. Toxic is, of course, there. Once he realizes that Gliscor is going to force out his Klefki, I can just Toxic the incoming Mon, as Klefki is the only Mon on his entire team that can suck up a Toxic, if I remember correctly. So definitely looking forward to using that in this game. That is the team. Let's jump into the battle, and it is on Wi-Fi this time, so stay tuned. Okay, so at team preview, I'm pretty intrigued with what he brought, as he did bring the Kyurem-Black, he brought Thundurus T, he brought Klefki, those were expected, but he brought Conkeldurr, Blastoise, and Cofagrigus, 3 Mons that I really didn't anticipate seeing in this matchup. I guess I can kind of understand Conkeldurr, as priority is very, very useful, and Conkeldurr potentially could be his best switch into Volcarona, but then he brought Cofagrigus, which tells me this is probably going to be a special wall. I just don't really know what kind it's going to be, and quite frankly, I'm not too familiar with what Cofagrigus can do. I probably should have researched that a little bit more before the battle, but he brought it, so now I have to deal with it. And then he brought the Blastoise, which I don't really agree with personally, as Zapdos would have been a much more effective option against my team, even though it is redundant with the Thundurus Therian. It still is much more of an offensive threat to my team, and quite frankly a defensive threat if I were to have brought maybe Hawlucha or something like that. But team preview is interesting. Let's go ahead and jump into the battle. I am really excited that this game is on Wi-Fi, as this is only the second Wi-Fi game I have done so far for this league. The first was against Danza and the Los Angeles Nidokings, I believe in week 4, so definitely check that out. He decides to lead off with Thundurus T, as I led off with Gliscor, as I thought I had a decent chance of being able to do some damage right away, but unfortunately he does lead with Thundurus. I'm expecting the Hidden Power Ice, maybe Hidden Power Flying, maybe a Psychic. Regardless, I'm going into my Volcarona. I guess I shouldn't have been doing that if I was expecting HP Flying. HP Ice was more likely, so that was the idea there. I go into Volcarona, and he hard switches into his Cofagrigus, which pretty much confirms that this is going to be his special wall, and the damage from this modest max special attack Fire Dance definitely confirms that. Sadly, I do not get the special attack boost, otherwise I definitely would have been in a very, very, very good situation right away. Here, I decided to switch out, because I am a little unfamiliar with what Cofagrigus can do, and I kind of wanted to scout, although he goes for knockoff here, which makes sense, and sadly I lose my Toxic Orb on my Gliscor. And that's really sad. Luckily, Gliscor was not a win con at all in this game. It's just a Klefki counter, so it's not the end of the world that I lost my Toxic Orb. However, it's a little bit annoying. Here I am anticipating the Will-O-Wisp, but I'm just going to go straight into my Volcarona, eat that up, and start to deal some damage to this thing, and see what it's made of. Because he brought it in on Volcarona, he has to have something to handle Volcarona on this, right? Because otherwise it just makes no sense at all. I just go for the Quiver Dance here, because I want to test the waters a little bit. He just goes for knockoff, which makes sense. I'm kind of hoping for the Flame Body here, and just get a quick little burn on this and make this a little bit of an easier experience, but sadly I don't get that, and he's just going to recover some health with leftovers, and with that I'm going to go ahead and fire off a Fiery Dance, and see how much damage this can do. Now, it looks like it does approximately 60%, and he reveals Haze, so now I understand why he brought it in. However, it really isn't going to be remarkably effective against Volcarona, as I am able to boost my own stats with Fiery Dance. I don't need to be using Quiver Dance, so I'm just going to start spamming Fiery Dance now, and he's going to have to click Pain Split at some point, and at some point I'm going to get that special attack boost, and it happens right here. As he clicks Pain Split, gets back, I believe, 50% of his health. Oh, not even that, about 40% of his health, and of course I lose some health from the Pain Split, but he is now in range of a Fiery Dance, and that is going to be able to knock him out. So Volcarona is going to pick up the first kill in this game, and we are off to a pleasant 6-5 advantage. Volcarona, I believe, is at +1 special attack right now, and he is going to bring in his Czech Regeki, the Thunder's T. Here I switch out into Gliscor, as I'm pretty sure, judging based upon the damage from turn 1 from the HP Ice, that this is going to be a Choice Scarf Thunder's T, and I'm fully anticipating the Volt Switch or the Thunderbolt there. So I just go straight into my Gliscor, no fear whatsoever. I just go straight for the Toxic, expecting the switch out, and I do hit the incoming Blastoise, which is great because Blastoise lacks recovery. Toxic will only wear him down. Leftovers will never be able to keep up, and this is really nice, as now I have the free switch into my Empoleon, which means free rocks, as he just goes for the Scald. I eat this up. Luckily I do not get burned. If I did get burned, again, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it of course makes it easier for me because I didn't get burned. We got some after turn effects going on here, so I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, and I apologize for that. But yeah, the toxic damage is going to wear on him a bit, and I am anticipating him to switch out here, as I am just going to lay my Stealth Rocks, as it is my best option here. I am expecting to switch into Conkeldurr, as that's going to be his all-purpose switch into Empoleon, but the good news is I do have an all-purpose switch into the Conkeldurr and my Mega Venusaur, and this will give me the opportunity to get my Mega off. So that's what I'm going to do here. I expect him to go for maybe a knockoff, maybe a bulk up if he has it, but again, I am anticipating this to be an Assault Vest Conkeldurr. He goes for the knockoff here, and it does a lot of damage. So I think this might be a banded Conkeldurr, which is kind of interesting. I might just be totally missing the mark here because my Venusaur wasn't Mega'd yet, but that was a lot of damage. That was a lot of damage. So I'm kind of thinking it's banded at this point, but I'm not going to take that for granted either, because I do want to play it safe until I have that information confirmed. I just go for the Leech Seed here, expecting him to switch out. He doesn't have a switch in for it because he didn't bring Roserade, so the Leech Seed just guarantees me free health back and free latent damage on whatever switches in. However, he does stay in with Conkeldurr and then switch out into Klefki. I believe I make that prediction, but I missed the Leech Seed, so that's kind of unfortunate. I'm not able to continue getting health back. And Klefki is going to be able to do what Klefki does, but luckily I did bring the counter in my Gliscor, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that in here. Also, shout out to Styx for all the nicknames on these mons. I hadn't mentioned that yet, but he did think it was funny to go ahead and nickname all these mons some very interesting things, and you've already seen the Empoleon, and I think the other one was the Venusaur? Not entirely sure, but he had some fun with this, so shout out to Styx for that. Here I go for the Earthquake, and I was just going to check and see if he had Magnet Rise before revealing Fire Fang, as the more damage on his mons from Earthquake, the better, and he really doesn't have many switch-ins for it other than Thunder's T, of course. So I'll get off some very nice damage against the Blastoise, and I'm just going to switch into my Empoleon without fear, knowing that he'll want to go for the Rapid Spin. He does get the critical hit with Rapid Spin here, I believe, and I'm going to call hacks on that, because that definitely mattered. Unfortunately for him, it does leftovers damage to my Empoleon, so Empoleon is going to be in pretty good shape here. And the Toxic is starting to wear him down, which is really nice. It is under 50%. It's becoming really a non-factor in this game very quickly. Here he switches out into Power Line, and now things get interesting, as the biggest threat to my team is in. I am just going for rocks here. But the thing is, like, I don't want to switch out. I can't switch out, because if I switch out, something's going to take too much damage. Way too much damage for me to be comfortable. So I'm just going to stay in and take it, whatever he wants to do. He goes for Fusion Bolt, which is a good play. But I live with 14 HP, courtesy of that tiny bit of investment in defense I had on Empoleon. If you go back to the team preview, you'll notice it, in the team building process, rather. And I live with 14 HP, so thank you, Styx, for recommending that I give Empoleon more defense, because that saved my butt right here, as I'm able to get off some significant damage on the Kyurem with Empoleon, and that is obviously going to help me out a lot, especially if this ends up being an Assault Vest Kyurem, but at this point I'm not really sure what it is. Judging based upon that damage, I'm kind of expecting this to be a Choice Scarf, although that really doesn't make sense in hindsight, considering he has a Choice Scarf Thunderous T, so that was bad thinking on my part. I do just go for the counter here, just expecting him to be choiced. He reveals Ice Beam, so I'm a little worried at this point. I very strongly considered going for Encore here, to make sure that he didn't do these attacking shenanigans where he switches physical special. However, I decided to grow a pair, be real, and go for counter twice in a row, and I pull it off. I'm able to take out the Kyurem Black, which makes things much easier for the rest of the game, as the biggest threat is down. I still have Wobbuffet intact, which means I have Death Fodder. Sorry, Wobbuffet, you did your job, but I definitely am going to have to sack you off at some point. However, this was going to be the time in which I did that. However, he just goes for the Hidden Power Ice, trying to get the Gliscor. I guess he considered that to be a threat to his team at that point. I disagree with that, but to each their own, and I am able to survive the Hidden Power Ice and Encore him into that, just in case he's not choiced. I wanted to be safe, as Encoring him into anything other than Thunderbolt, or Volt Switch for that matter, guarantees that I can set up with Volcarona. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to eat up the Hidden Power Ice, and I'm going to be able to have a little bit of fun with our boy Mothra over here. I'm just going to go for the Fiery Dance on the switch, as he doesn't have a switch in. Like, he has nothing to take this. He goes into Klefki, and that's obviously not going to enjoy this at all. I guess he was hoping that I went for the Quiver Dance, which makes sense, as he could have easily just gone for the Thunder Wave and hindered my Volcarona. However, I'm just going to go for the Fiery Dance, and I'm not sure if the crit mattered. I'm going to err with the side that it did matter, but I am Modest Max Special Attack with a base 80 stab attack, so I'm not really sure if it mattered, but hey. Crit takes the KO, which was great. Here he goes into Conkeldurr, and I'm going to save this thing just in case. Might be Death Fodder, might actually be useful later on. I have Wobbuffet as Death Fodder, and I'm going to sack it here to the Rock Slide from the Conkeldurr. So now this gives me a free switch into Mega Venusaur. I didn't want to switch it in and you know, take a critical hit or something. It really didn't matter. Could have just gone straight into Mega Venusaur, but hey, less damage taken here. I'm just going to go for the Leech Seed, expecting either the switch or maybe him to stay in to try to absorb the Leech Seed. Regardless, really doesn't matter to me, as now at this point Mega Venusaur should be able to clean up this game, especially if I'm able to knock out the Thunderous T. But with Mega Venusaur in play here, I'm pretty much guaranteed a KO if I don't play poorly. So here I haven't revealed Synthesis, and I'm kind of expecting him to think I don't have Synthesis. So I think this is a good opportunity to go ahead and go for it, as it's pretty much guaranteed. I know he's going to be scared to go into his Thunderous T, which really is his last line of defense against Mega Venusaur. I assume it has Psychic, that only makes sense, but I don't expect him to go into that here, so I'm just going to go for the Synthesis, get a bunch of health back from Leech Seed. I'm sitting at a pretty 156, and here I know for a fact he's going into Thunderous T. I'm just going to go straight for the Sludge Bomb, and that, I believe, is guaranteed to take it out at 51%, so that will take out the Thunderous T. He is left with only Blastoise and Conkeldurr, neither of which are capable of taking out Mega Venusaur. So Mega Venusaur is going to be able to clean up the rest of this game, I believe. I don't decide to go for Leaf Storm here, because I want to make sure that, you know, it's a faster finish, I guess. I just go for Sludge Bomb. I think it'll KO. If it doesn't, whatever. I am able to take out the Blastoise with the Sludge Bomb, though, and he has the Conkeldurr here that he brings in, and I'm just going to go for Leech Seed first, just because, in case, for whatever reason, Leaf Storm misses, he freezes me with Ice Punch. I want to make sure I have a way to kill it, basically. So I go for Leech Seed. Luckily it hits. I don't have to worry about any freezes from Ice Punch at this point, and I am going to be able to just reveal Leaf Storm here on the final turn and take it out. So that was a good game, Tom. He's a good player. He's very, very good at this format, that's for sure. I did get a little bit lucky, I would say, with the damage roll from the Kyurem Black against the Wobbuffet. He pointed that out to me after the match, and I agree. I got a little bit lucky on that, but I don't think it was game-changing either, as I would have had ways to take out Kyurem Black, namely Alakazam, who still had his Focus Sash intact. So, very fun game, Tom. Really enjoyed the battle. As for the Toronto Staraptors, we are now sitting at a 9-2 record. We have further solidified our first place in the league. I'll go ahead and bring that up here. I have a 8-2 record before this week with a plus 33 differential, which is 10 differential points above the second place team, the Atlanta Braviaries, who I did lose to a few weeks ago, I believe, due to very poor play on my part. But regardless, we are now 9-2. I believe a plus 37 differential, which is very, very good. Looking good going into the last few weeks of the season. These last few weeks are actually rematches against everyone in my conference. So I have a game against the Phoenix Suncurrent and Cheeseboy628. I have a game against Togaboire and the Portland Timbers. And finally, in week 14, I have a game against Mew, Draco, and the Green Bay Palkias. All of which are teams that I'm sure are looking to get some revenge on me. I did have some very good success against all of those teams in my first matchup. In fact, I've only lost, I believe, 2 or 3 months between the 3 of them, so definitely looking forward to those rematches. The good news is, though, that I nearly have a playoff spot clinched at this point, so the stress is off. It's more a matter of if I want to play for the #1 seed or if I want to just play to have fun here in these last 3 weeks, and I'll decide that as I go on. But yeah, next week is against Cheeseboy628 and the Phoenix Suncurrents. They are the team with the Mega Metacham, the Suicune, the Cloyster, all those fun UU-mons. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to having another game with my good friend Cheesy. And I will see you all in week 12. I hope you enjoyed.